Business owners of Reddit, what's the most obnoxious reason an employee quit had to be fired over? Employee was videotaped smoking a joint by a temp while on the clock. Employee figures the truth will come out or the video will surface eventually, so he confesses before we knew the video existed. We're relatively liberal when it comes to marijuana, so we demoted him and put him through substance abuse counseling. Upon completion and a negative drug screen, he can resume his normal duties. Fast forward 2 months, employee's position is reinstated. Everything is going well, until I walked out to the patio one day to find a marijuana plant growing in a flower pot. The flower pot is in clear view of a security camera. Roll the footage back several weeks and there is said employee pulling seeds from a bag, placing them in various pots around the patio. He was let go the next day. A home ec teacher I worked with had potted herbs in her culinary classroom. She worked in a rough junior high and eventually noticed sprouts that, well, let's just say they weren't the herbs she had planted. The kids thought they were being so clever. Was not my company but a store I was suddenly put in charge of when they fired the store manager. It was a store in a mall. The district manager was in town, hence the firing of the store manager, and decided he needed to hire another employee to fill the hours until he could find a useful manager. I wouldn't be manager, but I was the only employee of the store left. Well, this guy, we'll call him Danny, was notorious for working for nearly every store in that mall. He's worked at 5 different stores at separate times in the span of a year or less. Half the mall knows this guy and no one really likes him. He's your classic 30-year-old spoiled dude who lives with his mom. Our moron of a district manager decided he'd be a good addition to the team, against my protests. So he was trained in by the district manager, and his final day of training was the day the DM was supposed to fly out. The next day the DM flies out and instructs me to give him the key to the door so he could open and close by himself. His mom also worked in the mall and he helped her out part-time at a survey place, where they bug you to take a survey and offer to pay you like $2. So I went down to the survey place and tried to give him his key. He refused, said the job was too difficult for him. We bought gold, and it's not actually that difficult, and I spent most of my days actually playing WoW in the corner. Told me then that he quit and would not take the key. Then I had to call the district manager and tell him that he refused to take the key, said the job was too hard, quit, and I was still the only employee of the store, and I was part-time. Hired a girl to answer the phone and sweep up real quick before close. Literally 10 minutes of sweeping max a day if you were slow as all crap. As far as the phone goes, there's literally nothing we can do for you on the phone, but customers have some sort of problem with not having a phone for a business, so she only had to say hello, hear them ask whatever it is and say some variation of "I'm sorry, we can't really do that over the phone, but our hours are such and such and you can come on in and we'll get you taken care of." This bee made $100 a day to mostly sit around and play on Facebook or whatever she wanted. Instead she chose to stand outside talking to her unemployed boyfriend on the sidewalk all day. The one day a week she'd actually show up and she wouldn't even take the phone with her. I would still answer it. Then close came and she'd be nowhere to be found. About the 3rd week of, well, I guess she doesn't want to work here, I go to fire her butt and she starts hitting me with the "I'm pregnant. You can't fire a pregnant woman. It's illegal because the stress could kill my baby. If you fire me and my baby dies, I'm going to sue you for everything you have." It was so satisfying to watch her face unsmug itself as I said, "You remember that contract I kept trying to get you to fill out? The one saying I hired you? Yee. You don't work here. Frick off." Also, she wasn't actually pregnant. Cause your stress killed her baby. My husband was a contractor for a long time before moving to another industry. It was a small op, just him and his dad plus a couple employees intermittently. My husband had gotten a contract with the local Lowe's to do some installations and needed more help. Enter this middle-aged man who had all this experience. Right away, my husband got a bad vibe since the dude had been doing it so long but didn't own any of his own equipment. He ignored it because crap happens and maybe the guy just had some bad luck. He was on for a few weeks, doing great, no real problems. Since he had experience, my husband decided to make him a crew lead over some small projects. During this time, the guy had possession of some of the equipment my husband furnished for the job. This is important later. The guy had the audacity to go to Lowe's for payment before the job was even done. Not only that, Billow's agreement was under my husband's name and paid via mail or auto deposit. Can't quite remember. After yelling at some poor cashier in the management, he told my husband that he was getting ripped off and needed more money. Note, my husband paid for any and all work materials and paid him weekly for work done. He thought he could just cut out the middleman and get paid from Lowe's. He ended up trying to hold the equipment hostage for more money. My husband ended up paying him something but wasn't near what he was asking. The guy then showed up to our house with his young daughter to threaten my husband. Now, my husband is a big man. He's over 6 feet 2 inches with years of martial arts, MMA, and rugby under his belt. He has mellowed dramatically since we've been together, but I know he's been in lots of fights over lesser reasons. We got our equipment and the guy got his last payment, but he was told that if he ever came to our house again, it wouldn't matter if he had his kid or not, he would get his butt kicked. My husband later lost the Lowe's contract, with this episode being the main reason. TLDR. Guy was given a chance to work, tried to cut out the middleman. My husband, his boss, ended up losing his job and costing us a big contract. I was only an assistant manager at the time and didn't fire her. I also didn't hire the dumb butt. I used to work for a local chain burger place. We tried to teach this girl to bag the fries at first because we only had 2 fried products and it should have been simple, but she kept licking her fingers before she would grab a fry carton. I continuously had to tell her to wash her hands and try again. Our district manager showed up that day and got so frustrated with her that he told her to go clean up the lot. She then almost got hit by 2 cars in the parking lot because she wasn't looking where she was going. She got fired that day. She got hired at the donut shop next door after that. I went to get donuts one day. She licked her fingers before she grabbed the bag to put my donuts in and gave me the wrong change back. My company does a numerous amount of things outside of structured cabling and telecommunications work, one being digital signage installation. We were installing signage as part of a countrywide project, and during a stint of stores out towards Nevada, we received word from the manager of one of the locations that one of our techs was being rude. It came out later on that the manager had asked a minor question like, "How's the install going? What's the purpose of the signage?" Let's face it, not everyone is as informed as we like, even managers. Anyway, rather than explain calmly, he went off and initiated his part of the conversation with, "Mind your own freaking business." We dang near lost the project because of one person's lack of tact or self-control. He was fired rather quickly after being flown home hours after the incident. He got in 2 fender benders in 1 month, in a car he was driving that was the company's and on personal time. I took it away and he threw a fit and quit. Later found out he was smoking M, and that explains the rage. Just because you work overnights alone doesn't mean you can walk around in your underwear. After getting caught and warned once already. I was the manager at a very physical job once, and the boss, ignoring my recommendation, hired this 85-pound 18-year-old. Every day she was huffing and puffing and couldn't take the heat and fast pace. About a week later, I took the weekend to prep my speech about stepping it up, and Monday morning it rained. 830 rolls around. Work starts at 8, and I call her and ask where she's at. She tells me she's running late because of the rain. I'm thinking, okay, I understand traffic can be worse. 930 rolls around and she's still not there. I call her again and ask what's going on. Apparently she never left her house because she didn't have rain tires. I worked at Discount Tire for a year. You can't BS sir. I told her to not worry about coming in because she wasn't working out anyway, and she started to freak out over the phone. I calmly asked to verify her address and said your check will be mailed next payday, and hung up. All passenger vehicle tires are rain tires. That's the reason they have tread. The grooves in the rubber are what let the water escape from under the tire. When you are getting extremely low in tread, typically below 5/32, the grooves are not doing their job in expelling the water and can cause loss of traction and hydroplaning. In Arizona, USA, where this happened, they don't do inspections on tires, mainly just emissions. Never heard of rain tires. Anything other than racing slicks should work in the rain. New employee hired for basic administrative clerical role. Scan this, copy that, etc. After conversing with her, I find out it's her 7th job in the past 12 months. HMMMMM. Whatever. We have a meeting with upper management. She is asked to come in and take notes for one of the VPs. Broke his hand and unable to write or type. About 10 minutes in, she slumps nautically onto the desk to take a snooze. Mr. COO is surprised, politely asks her to wake up. Girl, without skipping a beat, flips Mr. COO the bird. She does not know Mr. COO is the vocal type. He drops a binder next to her head so she wakes up, snatches the notepad and tells her to GTFO loudly. They have a screaming match. She leaves with security. She came back around lunchtime with hammer, presumably to smash Mr. COO's car, but turned out to be Ms. CFO's new car. Turns out, Mrs. CFO is trained in some kind of martial arts. She grabs, now, ex-employee and throws her to the concrete ground. Ambulance is called. A VP says he will never pee off Ms. CFO again. Her 7th job in the past 12 months. Your HR department should be the next on the block if they miss this flag. Dealing drugs out of the back room of my bookstore was the deal breaker. 2 years later I still have people come in and leave quickly when they see it's not him behind the counter. Not me, but my dad's best friend owns a small bar in the center of my local city. He got offered a high-paying job somewhere else, so got someone else to manage and run his own bar. This guy is hosting a wedding after party thing and realizes he's run out of CO2 for his drinks halfway through. Now I don't know a lot about this sort of thing, but I know the logical thing would be to 1. Shut down the kegs all night, or 2. Try ring up and buy some quickly. Switch to cans bottles and offer some free shots or a discount to make up for it. Simple. This genius of a guy decides, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to connect a fire extinguisher up to the system. To the drinks that people are drinking at a wedding reception party thing. Surprisingly enough, people then complained that the drinks tasted awful and there was a massive backlash. He was then promptly fired when the owner found out. It was a wonder that no one got hurt. One of my patients told me this story. Patient owned a business where he hired someone who needed a place to stay. They worked out a deal where the new employee would stay in an RV parked at the store. As you might assume, this employee's commute was roughly 40 feet. He was fired for constantly being late to work. Mine is going to be buried because I'm so late, but an employee quit recently because she could not handle the burning of Notre Dame and felt like she needed to be with her mom during this time. We live in Mississippi. She has never been to Notre Dame. I had a duct tape wallet business in the 4th grade and hired classmates to sell for me. I fired one kid because he took my swing at lunch. A perfectly reasonable reason to fire someone. Last year one of our sales guys, a cocky crap, quit because he'd done an online video course on currency trading and had decided to set up his own hedge fund. No idea how he intended to, but probably an unregulated collective investment fund. Very much left with an attitude of frick you losers. I made 30k. No, he mixed up notional versus real, hahaha, in the last month alone. I'm going to be rich. 6 months later he's requesting references, applying for sales jobs online, etc. Messaged me to ask for help setting up a website. Get lost. I used to own a business in Nebraska. My former co-worker turned employee was short on cash one week. I lent him a couple $100 out of my pocket to pay his rent on a Friday. On Monday, I learned via Facebook that he went on a bender, blacked out, and woke up on a train to Denver with no money. He never came back. Last year he killed himself. I miss you, you dumb son of a b, and I want my money back. R.I.P. John. An employee of ours was an avid Jeep enthusiast and liked to do his own repairs. Come into our warehouse from a late business trip to find the top half of his Jeep completely removed from the bottom half, and welding fumes everywhere. He had been sneaking his car in during night hours to do his modifications, alone, and against direct instructions not to use our equipment. We handle open containers of food, so no bueno. Had an employee at my small CNC machine shop that was partially government funded because he had a previous injury. He milked anything he could, from leaving early to not doing basic jobs that I know he was capable of. One day he comes to me and says we are out of inserts for a common cutting tool. Like we had zero, so production had to stop. I asked him why he didn't tell me when they were low instead of zero. He said not my job. I fired him right there. just fired someone today because they decided they didn't want to work on Friday. Some weeks, that's cool. They've known for 4 months. This month is a 5-day per week minimum month. One of my managers has a girlfriend that doesn't want him gone all week, so he says, "Can I leave tonight? I really need to get to a bank back home, 3 hours away from our job site." The next manager has his bags packed at noon, not even the end of the day, and says his dogs miss him. I love his dogs, but we all knew how this week was going on Monday, Friday. His dogs needed to have care in place before we left. For the 5 days, he starts crying. I say, "Great, that's going to leave me with J and S as the only managers on Friday. A freaking hectic day." J says, "No boss, I'm leaving too." So I tell J I'll drop his paycheck off for him on Saturday and we'll be done. Kiss this job goodbye. I'm P. J says, "Well, my daughter's going in for surgery and I want to spend time with her." Frick man, why didn't you say that? She's going in for surgery? That makes a huge difference. I want to hug him. Well, eventually, J says, "She'll be eventually going in and I need time with her." Yeah, tonight was tough. I'm going to have to replace at least one of them. I do not own Taco Bell, obviously, but I had a co-worker when I worked there get fired for fricking his girlfriend during his shift. They were always in her car, in the parking lot, in broad daylight. It happened 3 times before he got fired. The director of HR walks into, "I crap you not, a board of directors meeting, and says, 'Am I the only one tired of all these fricking Indians? Smells like fricking curry in this place.' And that day you saw an entire board crap themselves." At my old job, a grown butt man quit, for the reason of the job was too hard. This was washing dishes at a breakfast place on a Thursday, yet the 17-year-old kid does it with no bitching. At my work, one of the operations managers would change the login password to some of the women he found really attractive so he would be the one to help them and flirt with them. All the women pretty much turned him down and then he got really nasty with them. A few of them reported him to HR and that's when they noticed that he was the one changing all the passwords and fired him. Madman. Worked in a hospital. An RN had been stealing patients' narcotic medication and hoarding it. The patients were given half of their regular doses and were complaining of extreme pain. This lasted about a month. To top it off, she was taking the medication while on the job and was high most of the time. She was terminated, reported to her college and ended up being charged criminally. Not an owner but former manager at a large pizza chain in Canada. I was the kitchen manager. It was a small tourist-driven town, so the workforce was slim pickings at best, so I always had to tread lightly. One gentleman who was Aboriginal was often confrontational to me. I was not from the town originally, so a lot of people were like, "Whoa, outsider here." Anyway, we butted heads a few times but never anything serious. Probably didn't help I was 22 and he was 46. At any rate, one day dude is making pizza. I noticed a few of them come out looking terrible. After about the third one, I walk back to the pizza build area and say, "X, can you please be just a bit more cautious when making pizzas? The cheese is uneven and the dough as well." Easy mistake, but it can make for poor quality on the other end and led to remakes. To which I was met with, "You don't have to attack me," and he walked out. 14 years of service. The manager above me was just around the corner and watched it unfold and was speechless. We thought he was just having a rough day and would be back the next day. Never returned. Maybe not the most obnoxious story, but still a what the frick moment in my manager career. Sounds like he just realized his life had led to the moment where his boss at a pizza chain was half his age. It can be sobering realization. Selling beer to a minor in a sting operation. This person sold to a 17-year-old that presented her actual vertical orientation means under 21, while ignoring the ad scanner 6 inches to the left and confirming a pop-up that reminds to check it and includes the "do not sell before" date. The kid looked like they were 14, not 17. This was 24 hours after this employee took the mandatory alcohol serving course. The fine cost the employee their job and $400 and has cost my restaurant $5k. The employee was very surprised that they were fired. We provided a contractor to a Fortune 10 company. Day 1 he is there. He sets up BitTorrent using their server farm and loads up every song in the history of the planet. Day 2 he remotely sets up distributed computing. SETI at home as a hidden process on every computer in the company. It took a couple of weeks to work out why the internet and thousands of people's computers had ground to a halt, and he was fired instantly. Then he sued us for $25 million because no one told me that I couldn't do it. We were in court on and off for 3 freaking years, but eventuality it was dismissed. I wasn't the boss but rather a teenager working my first job. I worked at that video game store that buys your used games for a penny and wants you to reserve every game coming out ever. Anyway, we had just gotten a new assistant manager. Super nice girl, got along great, etc. One night we were closing together. She asked if I wanted pizza. I said sure, thinking we'd pitch in. Well, when the pizza arrives, she opens the register, pulls out a $20 bill and pays the delivery guy with it. I ended up mentioning it to my store manager. Not because I wanted to get her in trouble, but because I was a stupid teenager and found it super odd as no other manager did that before while I was there. Turns out she'd been stealing and was fired soon after. A company I once worked for was moments away from firing a young lady because she and the owner's son had broken up. He worked there too. Business of about 150 people. It was an amicable breakup. Mommy and daddy thought it would be too hard on their 26-year-old son to have to see her all the time. HR had even typed up a recommendation letter outlining that she was a great employee, but they just couldn't put their son through this. I was able to shut it down like an hour before. You saved them a bunch of money. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.